What's up guys, it's Acegon, and today we're going to be ranking the new Jumpstart cards. So, I thought this would be an interesting video to make because a lot of these cards I believe are going to be put into Arena, and so eventually we might see some of these things. I could be wrong on that, but I've seen it somewhere on the internet, so we're going to discuss all these cards and how they seem to appear in general. In regards to EDH. If you guys want to try this yourselves, just check out the link in the description. I'll have a link to this page and you guys can rank it and I can see what you guys think about it and see what I got things wrong. So we're going to go over the tier list and the tiers. Now, I could got these tiers a little mixed up in regards to how I would like to power rank these cards. So the S tier is something along the lines of cards in this tier can be put into most decks. It doesn't really matter your commander or if the commander needs support. This card generally is very independent and requires very little build around compared to the A tier. A tier definitely requires some build around to use this card to get the value. Then there's C tier, which is anything between A and D tier. And so D tier are where the cards need a lot of build around. These are cards where if you don't play this card and you don't build around it, you won't get any value. And then there's memes only. So hopefully there's not too many memes only cards. These are cards where I don't even know how you'd put the card in here. Like most of the cards should be in like D tier before they get to F tier. F is just like the catch all tier. So let's just jump into it, guys. So the first card is Bruvik the Grand Delinquent. So I thought this card was particularly cool because it was another Azorius card. Like if you look at the armor this guy's wearing or his clothing, it's very Azorius. I like that. So there's going back in time and just adding more cards, that sort of theme. This card is interesting. It's obviously a build around, but it seems to me that if you're playing a mill deck, you're probably not going to need this card per se. This card is definitely a card that would enjoy to be built around. Like if you don't build around this card, it's not going to get any value. However, if you do build around this sort of mill sort of effect, I do think this card will just obviously just double your mill abilities. So this is definitely like a good mill card. For that case, I think we're going to put this perhaps maybe A tier later, but I think we're going to put it in C tier for now. I think Bruvik, one of his very awesome things that's going for him is his high toughness and power and low power. So you're playing a mill deck, you can put this in something like not Krufix, but the blue-black Demir mill decks. This fits in there. You can put it in mono blue mill decks. It's really good. Yeah, C tier, maybe A tier later, but I like this card. Then next up we have Emil the Blessed. So I had some queries about this card. There are a lot of cards that do things when they enter the battlefield, but some cards and some colors just don't have too much impactful things in those colors, and I was very worried about Emil and that problem. But I do think green has a lot to offer in regards to ETB effects, so I think I'm astonishingly enough going to rank Emil in the A tier. I think Emil's A tier. I'm going to push the boundaries. I think Emil's A tier. Reason being, hear me out. You could build around it, but like even if you don't build around it, say you have like just good stuff deck. It ETBs, you say like a card ETBs, it puts a land on the battlefield. You can blink it, right? Or you use Emil's ability, which is simply 3 mana, blink a creature and protect it. If you don't do it that way, you can also use this as sort of a beater commander. It's a 4 mana 4/4, which is I think pretty good in white. I don't think white generally has that good of a stat line. So it's like somewhat vanilla of a beater, but like you blink a creature, it's a 2/1, right? And enters and gives you a land. You blink it, it's a 3/2, it's a good beater, and it keeps on giving you ETB value. And you don't necessarily have to build around this. Like this is a good card that perhaps could go infinite, and just by blinking, like it could go infinite by itself, not by itself, but if you have a infinite mana and you keep blinking things infinitely, this is an outlet for that. Sethron Hurlan General. So this card is pretty me, but it's very independent. I think this card can definitely go into a C tier. This card, so you can play a bunch of Minotaurs, but say you don't play Minotaurs. This enters the battlefield, you get a 2/3 and that's it, which doesn't seem that good. But if you do play Minotaurs, so this card is very like independent as well. Like you get a 2/3 by itself with a 5 mana 4/4, which is good. Then you get the ability. I think this card is decent. I think it's definitely better than Brevek, but I don't think it has the same capabilities as Emil, because it's not like an infinite. I guess it is an infinite mana outlet, but just the value it gets compared to Emil, where Emil can get value immediately. This sort of has to, if you have enough mana, right? I guess in that sense, it might be put into A tier from there. But I think this is like very borderline A C tier. Like, it's not bad. It's just not too interesting. It's strong, but I don't know. This card is up in the air for me. I think it's between A and C tier. The Goblin King himself, Muxus Goblin Grande. I don't even know how to say his name. This card, where do we put him? So he's a huge CMC. I think that's a huge problem. So it requires to be built around in that you have to get mana out to get him cast, right? So right now I'm leaning to like C, D tier. Once you get him cast, he gets a lot of value. So he's like pretty independent in that case. I think he's C tier. He costs 6 mana. You have to ramp out to him. If he's your commander, you have to ramp out to him. If he's not your commander, you can play him in like a conspicuous snoop line. And if you're playing him in a conspicuous snoop line, he's a win con. So if he's a win con in that sort of deck and not as a commander, I think he requires less of a build around because he's just another combo piece. This is close. I think this is a very good C tier card right here. It can go both ways. If you're playing him commander, he gets worse, I think, because you're not going to cast him too often. I think Command Zone did a podcast on this, and like this CMC is way too high to be casting as a commander. You're gonna cast him like not even once a game. So I think this is a good C tier card. It is a good effect. It's just very costly of a card. Enyaz the Gale Force. So Enyaz the Gale Force makes creatures attack for lots of damage and makes things chaotic. This is a build around a card. Where would that go? It seems like a lot of these are going to C tier. So like you just play flyers and he's blue-white. So like it's very little of a restriction. Okay, and then if you have 3 flyers and you're constantly attacking with 3 flyers, you're getting the best thing at the table. To your right anyways, or to your left. And so does that warrant, is that immediate value? Non-flyers, right? So like this is a win con, if you think of it that way. I'm thinking this card is probably going to go in A tier. We're going to do it. We're going to put it in A tier. We need a few more people in A tier. This card is good. This card is decent. And then next up we have Ormos Archive Keeper. Let's see, Ormos. So he's 6 mana. Very discouraging already. Very discouraging. But he reads, discard 3 cards, draw 5 cards for 3 mana. So if you leave him on the battlefield, just one turn, you untap with him, you're drawing 10 cards. That's a lot. That's a lot. And you draw into your win con because you can just discard, if you have more than 3 cards, right? You just discard enough and you just draw your, oh, even if you discard 3 cards and you don't have the card you want in your hand, you gain 2 cards, and the next time you do it, you're just gonna discard the cards you don't need, right? I think this card is pretty good if you have enough mana. I think this is a strong effect, the bottom line, the bottom ability. The mid ability is like, okay, you don't lose from drawing your whole deck, but I don't know. This is a mana outlet. If you have infinite mana and you cast this, you draw your whole deck. I like this card. I think I'm going to put this card in S tier. This is our first S tier card. It's very independent. Could you put it in most? I think you could put it in most blue decks. Actually, if you put it in like a Timna Thrasios deck, I think it would be fine. However, because it's a high CMC, it probably won't be played in that sort of deck. But this card doesn't need built around. It's like if you run infinite mana combos and you play this, you just win the game because you just draw your whole deck. Even if you don't have infinite mana, the cost for the ability is just so low. It's very low. The only problem is if you're playing it as your commander, I think it's gonna die on sight. But you're playing blue, right? So you're gonna counter it. You're gonna counter all the destruction unless it's like a board wipe or everyone's gunning for you. It's a good ability. It's a good ability. As a commander, I don't think this card is too good though. If it was a commander, I'd put it down in the C tier. The next up we have Kells, the Fight Fixer. This card seems kind of boring. I said it in the review. I'm gonna say it again. I don't think this card is too interesting or good. It protects itself, but like you can loot through your deck, but is it really worth looting through your deck? Actually, a majority of your deck is going to be build around because you have to sacrifice creatures in order to get effects out of this card, right? Actually, yeah. More I think of it, this card is D tier. Like even if you don't have a build around deck for this card, If it's your commander, you play a creature, okay, and you don't sacrifice it. What do? You have a 4 mana 4/3 with menace. That's it. Yeah. This card. I don't know about this one, guys. This card is D tier. Kells is D tier. All right, next is Naieth of the Dire Hunt. Oh gosh, she's awesome. Her hair is sick. I love her whole aesthetic she's got going on. Huge wolf, thick wolf. This card, where do we put this card, guys? Let's see. Alright, you're casting this as your commander. What do we think? So it's your commander, enters, you go to combat. Okay, you can't do anything. You're on turn 4, and you cast. But you're on turn 4, and you have another creature attack, and it becomes blocked. You draw a card. Even if it doesn't die, you draw a card. So it's a card advantage engine. Say we don't even use the fight mechanic, because that seems pretty... It's nice, but like, you usually don't want to play too many of those cards in commander, because you never know who you're going to play against, and like, there's a lot of things wrong with fight mechanics, I think. But if you do use fight mechanics, it's like, it replaces itself. Your fight cards now replace themselves. So let's look at the second ability. Beginning your combat in your turn, you may pay 2 Golgari. Double target creature's power, and it must be blocked. So then you pay 3 and you have that creature become blocked. So you play 3 and you draw a card. That's for 1 okay, I think you can only pay for 1 creature, which isn't bad. But like, what if it has trample and like they're about to die? You get draw a lot. You draw like 2 cards maybe. It's only one creature becomes blocked. Alright, so it's limited to 1 creature per turn, I think, in this sort of idea. And when you go to combat, I don't think it's bad still. So like, you destroy their creature and your creature doesn't die because you're playing green. It has a big butt already. I think this card is pretty good, pretty much by itself. I think borderline S/A tier. Like, it requires very little build around. Like, you're playing green, you're gonna be playing rampers, and so you just chuck them in for fodder and you exchange them for a card. Like, say you run it in with a Llanowar Elf, right? You run it down mid with Llanowar Elf. They trade it because they don't want you to have creatures, and you know about the 40 turn clock, right? So they trade the Llanowar, you draw a card. But like, most of the time, this, I guess, will incentivize people to not block. So you draw a card. I like it. We're gonna put this in A tier. Naieth goes in A tier. And next up we have Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief. Okay, Tiny Bones, what do we think of Tiny Bones? I think Tiny Bones is actually a little worse than what people think. Like, he's cute and everything, but he's pretty build around. Like, you have to have an opponent discard a card on this turn, and then you draw a card on that turn, but it's like, it's not limited to your end step. It's not bad, but it requires a lot of build around. Like, you have to play a discard deck. Okay, and then say if someone takes your Tiny Bones, right? They take your Tiny Bones, and then you have a bunch of cards that discard, and you're playing against 4 people. That's like a Despise, or like a Thought Erasure, or a Thought Seize. So you're taking your cards from your hand to get rid of 1 card from someone else's hand. And so that's a 1/1, but like, you're playing against 2 other people, so it's not even worth it. So then you have to protect Tiny Bones because he's also a 2 mana 1/2. I mean, the good thing about him is he has a low CMC cost. So like, you're casting this multiple times a game, no doubt. The problem is he's incredibly build around, guys. I don't think he's the worst as Kells though, right? He's 2 mana, so like, you're casting this a lot. Kells is 4, which is double the mana, and double the mana is a lot. I think he's C tier. I think Tiny Bones is C tier. Like, he's cute and everything, but I think most of what's going for him is his cuteness. This is super build around. I would like this to be A tier, but Tiny Bones is very much, I think, borderline D tier. We're gonna put Tiny Bones in C tier. We're gonna put it in C tier. Will you guys get mad at me if I put him in D tier? I think he's better than Kells, but I'm gonna put him in D tier. I think he's better, but he's going in D tier for now. So next up we have, actually, one of my favorites is Zerzoth. Chaos. Zerzoth is pretty cool. I don't think we've had a double commander before. And he discards randomly. He's like a Heim of Turok, sort of, but in red. He also mace 1/1s. He's a 2/3 and doesn't have haste. That's kind of rough. He's red. So like, in order to get the effect out of him, you have to like give him haste. And then you also have to, if you have to wait a turn if you don't have a devil. Devil's a somewhat rare creature type. But like, he also doesn't need anything to be built around him, because if you attack with him, you create 1/1. Next time you attack with him, you create 2 1/1s. Then after that, you create 4 1/1s, assuming you're attacking every player, right? And then you create 4 from then on. And that's assuming you're only attacking with the tokens he's making as well. Like, if you have more doubles, that becomes a lot easier, assuming they're lower CMC as well. Maybe you play like shapeshifters with this. I think this card is a very good idea of a C tier. But it does cause a lot of chaos, which is interesting. And also, it's somewhat board wipe protection, in that you create 1/1s, and if they die, you can start like pinging crap. But like, I feel like this is a good reason why you don't play. I don't know how you build around this, but I think this is definitely a C tier guide. It requires a turn of waiting. If they're playing something that's drawing cards on your turn, you're creating 1/1s anyways. So that's actually pretty good to think about, because like, even though you get a turn you have the turn to wait, if people are interacting a lot, you're creating 1/1s, and this is their turn, because their first card you created 1/1. So like, there's a very good chance that the next time you attack, you swing with Zerzoth, you already have a 1/1, because like, blue's one of the most common colors being played, black is, Green is, those colors are drawing cards a lot. There's cards like Ristic Study, those cards are being played, and so I don't know, this card is, the more I think about it, that's probably a pretty good card. I think this is very C tier though. I like this card, C tier though. Okay, that will finish the Legends. Looking back at the Legends, I think this is a pretty good distribution of how Legends play out. I definitely am thinking maybe we take Inyaz from A tier. Like, it's not too hard to build around, but it seems pretty specific in that you have to have 3 more flyers. The bar for being like pretty influential in a game is a little lower for the rest of the A tier. We're gonna put them in C tier.